Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Good evening. Welcome to the first Lund quarterly meeting of 2022. My name is Kathy Hadd and I'm co-chair of Lowry United Neighborhoods. Carla McConnell and I will be hosting the meeting tonight. And I want to say a special thanks to Amanda Sawyer's office and her staff for helping us set up this Lund webinar. I don't think that we could have done it without them. So it's good to be here and it's good to have their support. If you live in Lowry, Lowry United Neighborhoods is your registered neighborhood organization, or RNO for short. We're the only RNO in Lowry that represents all of Lowry residents, both renters and homeowners, including all of Lowry, which includes Boulevard 1. Lund is your link to what's happening with Denver government. We receive regular notices from the city about what's happening related to our neighborhood, from zoning to sustainability. And we try to make the most relevant information available to you by posting it on our website or in our new monthly newsletter that's just started coming out. If you haven't already, check out our LowryUnitedNeighborhoods.org website. It's up and running now, and we've been working on it for a while, and we'd like to hear your feedback. Currently, Lund has a 13-member all-volunteer board, and I really can't say enough about the commitment our board members have made to this neighborhood. A couple of our members are leaving, and we're looking for a couple of new board members. If anyone's interested, you can contact me at kathyhead1@comcast.net, and I'd love to talk to you more about what we do. And also want to let you know that our next neighborhood meeting, our next quarterly meeting will be April 5th. And at that one, we'll be exploring the concern of insufficient affordable housing and people experiencing homelessness in Denver. So tonight's program, it seems like every day public safety and crime is in the news. We see it posted on Next Door Neighbors all the time and social media. The big front page article in the Denver Post last Sunday was, "How bad is Colorado crime?" To help us make sense of what's happening in our city, we are so grateful to have with us tonight our panel who will describe the roles and responsibilities of each of the departments they represent, what they are finding regarding public safety and crime in Denver and Lowry, and what's being done about it. So please welcome our panel, Denver District Attorney Beth McCann, Director of Prosecution and Code Enforcement from the City Attorney's Office, Marley Bordovsky, our own Denver District 5 Councilwoman, Amanda Sawyer, and our DPT District 3 Community Resource Officer, Matt Grimsley. Now I want to turn it over to Carla McConnell, who will go over some of the logistics for tonight, and then we'll get started.
Thank you, Kathy. Our program this evening will be in 3 parts. Initially, we would like each of our panelists to provide an introduction to how their agency is involved with the issues of public safety and crime. After that, Lund has prepared 5 questions that we would like to have the panelists respond to. And after that, we will move into public comments. We ask that you put your comments into the chat function. And of course, we ask that the comments all be courteous, and they can be directed to a specific panelist, or they can be directed just generally. We ask that our responses by the panelists not go over 2 minutes. I doubt that we're going to have that issue, but if they do get a little bit long, I'll warn you when you have about 30 seconds left. And I think that is all. So we can start with our introductions. And I think what the order we will follow will be, first we'll have our District Attorney, Beth McCann, and then our City Attorney, Bordovsky, Councilwoman Sawyer, and then our officer Grimsley. So District Attorney, if you will start. Thank you.
Sure. Hello, everyone, and thanks for coming tonight. I'm Beth McCann. I'm the district attorney here in Denver, and happy to be with you tonight and talk a little bit about what my office does and how we can help you and help the community and keeping the community safe. So our primary responsibility in the DA's office is to prosecute criminal behavior. And we're in court every day doing that. Right now, the courts are not holding jury trials because of COVID, but we are filing cases every day and disposing of cases throughout all of the COVID situation. We are able to have our preliminary hearings and our motion hearings and so forth are in court during the COVID suspension of jury trials. We will be starting jury trials again mid-February. So we're looking forward to that because during the COVID situation, the cases have backed up, as you might imagine, when cases continually get postponed because of various reasons related to COVID. We had one of my attorneys was telling me yesterday, he has a murder trial that's been continued 6 times now. So that's pretty frustrating, but we are filing our regular cases and handling them every day. We have but essentially 3 primary divisions for criminal cases. We have our county court, which handles state misdemeanor cases. And then we have our juvenile court that handles our juvenile filings, and our regular felony district court where we handle all the felony filings. And then we have a number of additional alternative programs for people in appropriate cases. We have started an adult diversion program. We've always had a juvenile diversion program, but we've started an adult program for people who are arrested for generally lower level crimes, and then people that we believe could benefit from referral to treatment or counseling or help with finding a job, whatever their situation is. We've also started a restorative justice program, and I don't know how many of you are familiar with that, but it's an alternative to the traditional criminal system that allows the victim and the defendant to actually have a discussion about what happened and then come to an agreement about how to resolve their case. We also have our drug, we have a felony drug court and a misdemeanor drug court. We have a veterans court. We've just started a mental health competency court for people who are having mental health issues. And so we have, there are a couple other things that we've started related to crime, but I can talk about later. But we try to approach each case by looking at it individually and determining what is the right approach. Is this a person that is dangerous to the community, needs to be prosecuted to the full extent, preferably, ultimately ending up in possible prison time? Or is this someone who is just beginning the journey into the criminal justice system, and can we assist in helping that person make better choices? And that's particularly true in the juvenile arena. So we look at those cases individually and then prosecute them as we think will best serve the community and the victims of crime and the individuals. So I think I'll stop there. I think that gives you kind of a general overview of what we do.
Thank you. Now we'll move to our city attorney, Marley Bordovsky. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. As with Beth's comments, I'm happy to be here and kind of give you some background on what our office does. We truly do work hand in hand with Beth McCann's office. We are specially deputized district attorneys, but we mainly handle violations of the Denver Municipal Code. And so what that means is it can range from a park curfew violation all the way up to a domestic violence case, and we handle upwards of 1,500 domestic violence cases a year. In addition to that, so in addition to the typical arrest and prosecution model that you think of when you think of prosecutors' offices, we also handle all of excise and licenses cases. So we handle liquor licensing, marijuana licensing, and all about 180 different types of licenses that exist in the city. Some that have come up recently are unlicensed motels, and so we can take action there. And that kind of thing. So there are a lot of business licenses out there where we can exert some leverage on a business to become a better business owner. We also have a neighborhood prosecution team, and that's a team of attorneys that actually goes into the community and works with you, RNOs, community members, individuals, DPD, brings different agencies to the table to come up with outside the box solutions to chronic problems that plague a neighborhood that don't necessarily respond well to your traditional arrest and prosecution model. We do have, as part of that neighborhood prosecution team, we are very involved in homeless encampment cleanups. I'm actually boots on the ground 2-3 times a week with these cleanups, and very involved with the mayor's office and different folks trying to figure out solutions to the problem, to homelessness and homeless encampments, and the increasing problem that we're seeing throughout the city of folks living in their RVs or in abandoned semi-trailers. So that's high on our list of things that we're trying to work on throughout the city right now. In addition to the specialty courts that DA McCann mentioned in her introduction, we also have some specialty dockets. We have what's called an outreach court, where we actually go out into the communities. It started at the Denver Rescue Mission, but we're now in the Central Library and some other community-based locations where we hold court, have court dockets where folks can come in, where they might not necessarily come to the courthouse, but they're more likely to resolve their cases somewhere where they're more comfortable. And we've been able to resolve a lot of cases in that docket. We have a wellness court, we have some mental health dockets. We have a DUR navigator court, which reached a milestone just last week of getting over 1,000 people reconnected with their licenses, and so they're legal to drive. Which is a huge success. Once you get into the cycle of driving under revocation, it's really difficult to get out of that cycle. So that's a huge success throughout the city. I think Denver is taking a lead in the metro area in that realm. We also hold things, we call it veteran stand down, where veterans who have outstanding tickets have an opportunity to come in and find a resolution to those tickets. And we're really trying to avoid having bench warrants issued and people being arrested on these warrants. And so we're trying to find creative ways with DA McCann's office to find different resolution to these types of cases. So again, I'll pause there. There's plenty more I could go on and on about, but that's a kind of a high level summary of what we do.
Thank you very much. And now we'll move to our councilwoman.
Thanks, Carla. And before I get started, just want to give a shout out to Logan and Felicia, my 2 aides who are on the call as well. Thank you both so much for all of your help in setting up this event with Lun. And Kathy and Carla, thanks so much for hosting and for having me. So hello, everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Amanda Sawyer, City Councilwoman for District 5, which is East Central Denver, all the way from Colorado Boulevard to the Aurora border. My northern border right now is East Colfax, and then my southern border gets a little cattywampus. So in some places it's Tennessee, in some places it's Mississippi, but that is the southern border there. So in terms of what City Council does when it comes to being in relation to crime, I want to talk a little bit about kind of the separation of powers in a government, right? So whether you're looking at federal, state, or local government, there are 3 branches. There's the judicial branch, There's the executive branch, which would be the mayor's office and the city agencies in the city of Denver. And then there's the legislative branch. So city council sits as the legislative branch for the city and county of Denver. And what that means is that we make all the laws for the city of Denver, and we approve and oversee the development of the budget and kind of work with the different agencies on our priorities, their priorities, the mayor's office priorities, et cetera, the needs of the cities, the residents, and what we hear back from our community members, and then work on developing the budget, and then city council has final approval of that. And then we make land use decisions. We sit in a quasi judicial role for rezonings and make land use decisions. So interestingly, in Denver, which is what's called a strong mayor system, those are the council powers. That's it, right? So when you ask, what do you do when it comes to crime, and how do you touch that part of the community's need? The answer is really, I am the liaison. I am, the community-facing resource where residents can come to our office with concerns or questions. We will connect them to all of the different agencies within the city that can actually do something about it, whether that be our police department, whether that be our city attorney's office, whether that be our district attorney's office. What I do in terms of touching crime is really more behind the scenes for a lot of the kind of decision-making process. And a lot of what happens with things like policies and procedures is actually done by our city agencies. So if you look at another city, say Aurora, that has a different form of government, they have a council manager form of government. And in that case, the council actually makes the decisions, and then the city staff implements those decisions. So that's not the way the city of Denver works. So it's very interesting. Sometimes there's a lot of confusion about that. So just wanted to kind of explain what this looks like internally. But in terms of what I personally have been doing, I work a lot with the police department. I work a lot with the city attorney's office. I have worked to advocate for the community when they hear concerns about crime in particular. I just created a gun buyback program that will be implemented in partnership with the city of Aurora and the Denver Broncos and a nonprofit organization in Colorado Springs called Raw Tools. And Raw Tools is actually a very, very cool organization. They take the guns during the buyback, they destroy them and they melt them down and turn them into garden tools and jewelry. So it's a really beautiful thing. I also have worked with the District 2 Police Department, which is sort of the northern half of District 5, to do a lot of different things, including apply for community safety grants, create and develop a community safety program specific to the East Colfax neighborhood that is funded by a state grant at this point. So I will stop there. Like I said, there's a number of things that I can talk about, but in terms of the sort of specific things that city council does when it comes to addressing crime, the vast majority of what I do is just liaising with other agencies, and particularly with Officer Grimsley. So Matt, I'm gonna let you take it from here. Good to see you, and thanks again for having me.
Thank you. Officer Grimsley.
Hi, good to see you, Councilwoman, and thank you everyone for setting this meeting up and everyone that's attending. My name is Matt Grimsley. I'm one of the community resource officers in District 3. There's two of us. It's Mike Borquez and myself. So we are kind of the liaison between the community and the police department in District 3. Logan's going to put my email and Mike's email in the chat. So if you have any questions or have questions about what we do or any questions about something that's happening in your neighborhood, please email us. But I would like to introduce Lieutenant Carlos Aragon. He's second in command at District 3, and he's joining us tonight, along with Sergeant Kim Tredell. So they will be helping with answer questions, but I will turn it over to Lieutenant Aragon.
Thanks, Matt, and thanks for having us be part of this this panel and be part of this meeting. So I really appreciate that. So Just real quick, as Matt stated, my name is Lieutenant Carlos Aragon. I'm the admin lieutenant to Commander Kyle, which is the second command in District 3. My apologies for Commander Kyle for not being able to attend this meeting. He is currently on vacation and could not make it tonight. So I am standing in his place for tonight. Real quick, I'll just give you a quick breakdown of kind of what we do in District 3 and kind of the area that we cover. So obviously we deal with patrol functions. So you see officers in the white police cars, and they're dealing with patrol. We also do investigations as well as narcotics investigations within District 3. Our area spans from 6th Avenue south to the DTC area, and then we go basically from the Platte River east all the way to Aurora. So our geographical area is actually very large. We are the biggest district out of all 6 districts within the city and county of Denver. So we have the biggest geographical area. As far as things that we investigate with our investigations, we investigate property crimes, you investigate person-on-person crimes. We deal with street robberies, again, narcotics and various other crimes that can be committed within the city. So as Matt stated, we do actually have 4 CROs total within District 3. The actual district is broken up into 2 sectors. There's a western sector and an eastern sector. Our eastern part of the district is what we consider Sector 2, which is what Matt covers, as well as Officer Borquez. So you actually have two CROs that actually cover Sector 2 in the Lowry neighborhood. So with that being said, I'll kind of cut myself off there and then answer some questions as we continue with the meeting. But thanks again for having us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Kathy's going to ask the first question of our panelists now. And I will, if you looks like you're getting close to that 2-minute mark, I will just make a comment about so many seconds left so we can get through everything. Thank you.
Okay. So the first question is, crime has increased in all categories in Denver. We have read that Colorado is number 5 in the nation in repeat offenders. What is driving this increase? And again, we'll start with DA McCann. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry, that's the
There we
latest, the phrase of 2020 and 2021. Actually, yes, I don't know where that information came from, but as the Denver Post reported, and I think Kathy mentioned that on Sunday, some categories of crime in Denver are actually down. Robberies, rapes, and burglaries are actually down in Denver, or I should say in Colorado, but I believe they are down in Denver as well. And so what we've seen, though, is an increase in homicides and aggravated assaults, violent crimes. Those have been going up since about 2016, going up gradually, but in the last couple of years, there has been certainly an increase in the number of homicides. But as the Post pointed out, we still are below the levels that we had in the early 90s in Colorado in terms of crime rates. So what's causing it? I wish I could tell you this is it. And if we just solve this problem, we will have it solved. I think it's really a combination of a lot of things. I do think the pandemic, COVID, has had a pretty significant impact. People are anxious, they're stressed, they're angry, and the proliferation of guns in our community is pretty alarming. The guns are so accessible now, and so many people, when they get anxious or upset or angry, if there's a gun available, it seems to end up being used. We're seeing a lot of sort of random homicides or ag assaults where neighbors get into arguments and one of them has a gun.
15 seconds.
And pulls it out. I also think the lack of our typical social organizations, schools, universities, our networks, our social structures haven't been in place. And so people don't have that to rely on. So I think those are some of the causes. There are, I'm sure, others.
Okay.
City Attorney?
Yeah, I would share DA McCann's comments. It's a difficult problem for all of us to get our arms around. And I wish, you know, if I had the answers, I'd probably be a millionaire, but I don't. I think she hit it on the head where there's a lot of anxiety and there's a lot of anger going on in our society. And there aren't ready solutions to those things. I don't pride myself on being politically correct. So I please don't see this answer as that. These are difficult problems to find solutions to. A lot of the specialty courts that Beth and I talked about are efforts to address those difficult issues that surround our society. One of them, Beth talked about a few of them, but we have mental health issues across the board. And my courtrooms, I have 4 trial courtrooms, 2 arraignment courtrooms, and I wouldn't say the vast majority, but the majority of our cases do involve folks with mental health challenges and addiction challenges. And so many times those things are co-occurring. So how do you solve that problem in addition to solving the crime problem? It's a difficult issue to wrap our arms around, and we are continually trying new models, new specialty courts to try to solve that issue. It's not an easy one.
Okay, thank you. Councilwoman?
Thank you. You know, I think the DA McCann and Marley really, you know, hit the nail on the head, right? There are so many different things that are the cause of what we're seeing now in our community. And, you know, the only other thing that I would really add to it is wage stagnation. So, you know, the city of Denver has really seen wage stagnation occur. And what that means is that people, you know, the cost of living continues to go up, but people's salaries are not, and raises are not keeping up with the cost of living. And that has created a desperate need in our community. You know, we see that food banks are running out of food because so many more people are accessing them than they would have maybe prior to the pandemic. You know, we see that people are trying to reach out for mental health support, and there's simply not enough mental health experts in the community because it's not necessarily a job that pays you know, particularly well. You know, there's a lot of different challenges here, but I would say that what we see in our office is an extraordinary need like I have never seen before, and certainly not prior to March of 2020, in terms of the concerns and the need that is coming into our office that we try and meet. So I will stop there, but I think that, you know, it's all of these different things together.
Thank you. Let's see, will it be Lieutenant Aragon who'll be speaking? Or Officer Grimsley? There we have you. And you are muted.
Yeah, got it. Thank you. So as far as, you know, crime, I'll just speak to what I see in District 3 as far as the things that we deal with. You know, one of our main approaches when we deal with crime is, you know, community involvement. And one of our best programs that we've been dealing with community involvement has been Neighborhood Watch, right? And, you know, I see some of the comments that are coming in and some of the questions, but Neighborhood Watch and being a block communicator within that program just helps us, you know, communicate and actually get the word out a lot faster across vast majorities of people. It also helps, you know, in dealing with specific crimes like thefts, you know, I know there's different thefts and things happening and items being taken off people's porches, you know, cars being broken into. And so being involved in your community and being involved in some of those programs that we actually push out with our CROs, with Matt and Mike, and go into these neighborhood meetings, it really helps when you're involved, because if something is somebody's committing looks like they're about to commit a criminal offense, or they act not necessarily suspicious, but acting like criminal in nature, they're lifting up car door handles, or they're peeking in someone's window where they don't belong there. If you get the word out and you call us and communicate with us, we can try to get an officer out there as soon as possible to try to investigate that and see what's going on. So for us, it's that type of approach where if the neighborhood and the community is involved with us as a partnership, it just helps us combat some of the things that we're dealing with as far as crime and increases and things that are happening within District 3. Matt, do you have anything to add?
Mute button. Just that neighborhood watch has increased. We have hundreds and hundreds of people that are involved, and so we do get daily questions. What happened when we called the police? So it's just the ability to get the right information out to everybody that's involved. And we also push crime prevention, methods on how to reinforce your house or business. So I think just the communication aspect, I think from the police department side, is really helping to get the word out and help people protect themselves.
Okay, thank you both very much. So our next question is there a relationship between incarceration rates and crime levels? Meaning, with increased incarcerations, do we see reduced crime, or with fewer incarcerations, do we see more crime? In your answer, if appropriate, please mention the personal recognizance bonds, why they are granted, and early releases due to COVID safety concerns, and any impacts that these actions may have had on crime. And we'll start again with our district attorney.
Yes, so there's been a lot of discussion about bonds and PR bonds. I don't believe that is driving the crime rates. We've always had people released on PR bonds, and we see people on bond, people who have actually made their bond, monetary bond, and people on PR bonds do reoffend from time to time. The vast majority of people do not reoffend. And we don't see that as really the driver of the increase in crime. I believe that it's related to other issues that we've discussed, that we've already talked about in terms of trying to get to the root causes of crime, and certainly holding people accountable when we do capture them and arrest them and charge them. I've seen some notes in the chat about people are being told that the DA isn't prosecuting car thefts or motor vehicle theft. That is not true. We are in court all the time prosecuting many motor vehicle thefts. And if there's a particular case that someone is concerned about, I'm happy to have someone contact my office and we can look up the case. Sometimes the police are not able to identify who has been involved, and that's why the case doesn't get prosecuted. But we are in court, we're filing cases every day involving car thefts and thefts from motor vehicles. I think I don't see that as a PR bond issue or a bond issue. Just so people understand, when people appear in court, the judge makes the decision about whether to give someone a monetary bond or a PR bond. And there's a risk assessment that's done by the pretrial services unit to assess the likelihood that someone will reoffend if they are released. And so the judges rely on that information. My office makes our arguments, and the public defender makes their argument. And then it's up to the judge to determine whether or not someone has a monetary bond or is released on PR bond. And so I think the judges—
15 seconds.
Okay. Judges also are cognizant of the fact that a bond also can be used to penalize people who don't have the funds to make bond. So no matter how dangerous someone is, if they have the funds to pay the bond, they're going to get out. So I think that's kind of it's kind of a straw man, and we really ought to be looking deeper at what are the fundamental causes of crime.
Thank you. City Attorney Bordovsky?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I would agree with a lot of what DA McCann said. It's at the end of the day, it's the judge that's making the decision. Our prosecutors are in there making the same arguments. There's a little bit of a difference between my office and the DA's office in that my office let me back up a minute. The police officers on the street get to make the decision in their discretion about how to potentially charge a case. They can write a ticket or arrest somebody into municipal court. We take all of those cases without screening. So our caseload is pretty heavy. Unlike the DA's office, the cases that come into municipal court there's no screening by an attorney. If we have the appropriate evidence in hand from the police officers, and we've done a lot of training across all of the districts on what we need, we can get, as a condition of any bond that's granted, including a PR bond, which are, as DA McCann's talking about, are pretty common right now because of some state legislation that's gone through and the circumstances that we're in, but we can get as a condition of that bond an area restriction. So if a person, for example, is a chronic problem in a certain area of the city, we can get an area restriction preventing them from coming into that area. It doesn't work in every case, but it is one tool that's at our disposal. I know that the DA's office is also using that as one of the tools that they have at their disposal. So there are things other than just a monetary bond that we can use that provide additional kind of wraparound or some tools that actually have some teeth to them. Monetary bonds aren't the only answer. I just want to be clear about that to kind of echo what DA McCann's saying. It's not the only answer. And a lot of times a monetary bond isn't going to keep a person from reoffending if they choose to do so, or it's not going to keep a person from behaving badly. A lot of the tools that we have
15 seconds, please.
A lot of the tools that we have at our disposal are designed to get at that issue, where a monetary bond may or may not do that, and oftentimes does not.
Thank you. Councilwoman.
Thanks. Yeah, I mean, the short answer is City Council doesn't have anything to do with the judicial branch of government. So, their policies and procedures and the choices that the judges make, don't have anything to do with us. The kinds of things that we touch that can address these problems, so in terms of PR bonds, that is a decision that is implemented by the judicial branch. And, all we are left to do as city council members is report back what we're hearing from our residents, which is an extraordinary concern for the uptick in crime that they are seeing and experiencing in our neighborhoods, and work with the police department and also report back on the incredible frustration that our police officers are feeling right now. They're in an extraordinary position, and we are highly understaffed and struggling to recruit because it's very, very tough to be a police officer right now in the city and county of Denver. And in fact, it's not just the city and county of Denver, it's across the country and in large cities everywhere. So, what are the things that we are doing to help support? We approve the contract. So things like I saw a question about ShotSpotter. That contract came through a couple of weeks ago. There's a contract that's coming to committee for Halo cameras. That we work on that. We are working with the mayor's office to implement things to recruitment bonuses and retention opportunities and things like that for all of our public safety department, because You know, like I said, it's very difficult right now to be a police officer. They are in a very difficult position and uncharted waters. And, you know, so we are struggling right now with recruitment. And I think, you know, the one thing that I would point out there is that means that when there are less officers on the street, there are less, you know, there's less support available for the community. And that means longer response times, you know, for lower level crime concerns. You know, we hear a lot about 2-hour response times, you know, for a break-in or something like that, or a car theft. And, you know, that's extraordinarily concerning because it's not okay with our residents and it's not okay with us. And so we're
15
doing
seconds.
Thank you.
Sorry.
So we're, you know, working on those kinds of things to really ensure that we're shoring up our police department as well and staffing it appropriately so that our residents have the response that they deserve and that they should be getting. So I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thank you. Can we hear from Lieutenant Aragon or Officer Grimsley?
Sure. So as far as this specific question, this really, you know, again, this doesn't really fall within our realm as far as how it's specifically worded. I will just touch on, you know, as far as what the district attorney said and the city attorney said. We do have a great relationship with them as far as their office is concerned, as far as training with the officers and getting the word out as far as how to take good reports. You know, as far as the specific question, though, is not really, I don't really have an answer for it just because it's not really within my realm and kind of what we deal with.
That's fine. I think our next question that Kathy's going to ask will be very specific for you.
Yeah, okay. So the next question is, how is the role of the police changing? Are these changes impacting recruiting and retention?
And maybe we should start with Lieutenant Aragon this time.
Yeah.
Sure. So as far as how the role of the police department or police is changing, you know, as the councilwoman stated earlier, it is, you know, getting harder to recruit qualified applicants, obviously, for the police department because it is a very tough job, right? It's very stressful to begin with. You do very vigorous training within the academy. It's a long process to be trained as a police officer. And then once you get training and trained through the police academy, then you actually have to do what we call PTO, which is actually field training. So you're actually in the field with a training officer, which takes several months as well. So some officers, you know, make the program successfully and some of them don't. It's just, it is a very, you know, stress induced, you know, job. So just getting people to be involved and be, you know, apply for the police department has been a little tough. But I will say, and I'll speak specifically to District 3, we have been pretty lucky as far as, you know, the officers that we have and actually, and then still, you know, still have all the way through COVID, dealing with different stressors that have popped up in the last couple of years. We've actually been really lucky. I know we are still a little bit short, but we're not, you know, crazy short. So where we still have, you know, plenty of officers to provide cover. I know sometimes there are long waits and long wait times for specific calls. Just those calls are being prioritized, and it's not that they're not important to us, but they just are, you know, as far as other things going on within the city, sometimes they just fall within a lower priority on that particular night when that particular crime is happening. So we want to make sure that, you know, our officers, as well as, you know, everyone that's, hang on one sec, sorry about that. That our officers are obviously providing the utmost customer service when they get there. We want to make sure that we understand the community sometimes is frustrated when they're waiting for long periods of time, you know, for specific calls, you know, property calls and property crimes that have occurred. And so we want to make sure that we display the proper customer service when we arrive, and understand that the community is frustrated as well. Sometimes we're, like I said, we're frustrated as, you know, with the situation and some things that are happening. So I know my time is kind of running out, but you know, I'll kind of end it there. If there's any other specific questions, I can address those as they pop up.
Okay, thank you very much. DA McCann, do you have anything to add to this particular issue?
Not really. I think, I do think that we are very supportive of the police department in their efforts to recruit more officers. I think there has been a difficulty in getting more officers, and the fewer officers you have, the less contact they're going to have with the community in terms of solving crime. It's not just in the police department. My office is also losing people, and we don't have as many applicants as we used to have. And I think it is related to the great resignation that's going on, but also just, a lot of people don't want to be in law enforcement at this time. So it's an interesting time to watch.
Thank you. City Attorney Bordovsky, do you have anything to chime in on this one?
Yeah, I would echo what both DA McCann and Lieutenant Aragon said. We're all suffering. I am more shorthanded than I've ever been in my more than decade of being at the city attorney's office. It's unprecedented. I've never seen anything like it. That said, we're hiring and recruiting furiously as we possibly can. And also I want to echo what DA McCann said is we do partner with DPD. I don't know how many meetings per day trying to collaborate and brainstorm with DPD on different solutions to the problems that are being aired here. We also, and I know the DA's office does this as well, we go into the police academy and we do trainings within the academy to help support them. I actually have one this week. So we are hand in hand with DPD trying to make sure that they're supported not only in the academy and as they get their recruits ready to go onto the streets, but even after they're on the streets and helping them navigate the challenges that are out there. So we're hand in hand in trying to solve these things. It's just we're in a difficult spot right now across the board.
Thank you. Councilwoman Sawyer, do you have any comments about this?
Yeah, thanks. I think I, pretty much covered it in my previous answer. And, I think you heard it from the police officers themselves, right? This is a tough time to be a cop. It's a tough time to be in law enforcement in general. And I will say it's a tough time to be a politician. You should see some of the things that come into our offices. I'm sure DA McCann has had the same experience. It's extraordinary. And, that just speaks to the level of frustration that is happening in the community, the level of, concern out there. And we talked about all of the different causes of that as well. So I will save us some time and stop there. But yes, I do think that these things are all kind of coming together to affect recruitment in particular, which is a big problem for us.
Okay, thank you. This next one we've touched on a little bit, but it is something that in the neighborhood is of great concern, and we hear these comments about this often. And the question is, what is being done about porch pirates, car break-ins, or thefts? Are these crimes being prosecuted, and what do courts need in order to prosecute? And I think we'll start with our DA McCann again.
Sure. Yes, they are being prosecuted, assuming that the police are able to identify and investigate the crime and identify a suspect. So the way it works is that the cases come into the DA's office through the Denver Police Department. They do the initial investigation. They present a case to us, and we make a decision about whether or not there is enough evidence that a jury would convict someone beyond a reasonable doubt. It's a high burden. And we take it very seriously. Before we charge someone with a crime, we really have to evaluate, do we have enough evidence? Do we have the right person? And then if we do, we absolutely file the cases and prosecute them. So yes, they are being prosecuted.
Okay, thank you. City Attorney Bordovsky.
I don't really have anything to add to that. We are prosecuting any of these kinds of cases that come to us. I would probably echo what DA McCann's saying. A lot of the challenge here is identifying the suspect and identifying the person to charge. And so, I know DPD does what they can. I know there's Ring doorbells out there. We all have those these days. But at the end of the day, ID is the issue, and we do have to prove these cases beyond a reasonable doubt. So there are challenges to them, but if they make it to the point where we're able to charge somebody, we are definitely prosecuting those.
Thank you. Councilwoman Sawyer?
I don't think I have anything to add. Again, City Council doesn't make any of those decisions. That's all done in the judicial branch and in the judicial side of things. But I will just sort of echo Marley's point that, what can the community do, right, to help? And the answer to that is participate in Neighborhood Watch. We have the data that shows that communities who participate in Neighborhood Watch have lower crime rates than not necessarily for violent crime, but for other, non-violent, low-level offenses. People in communities that are participating in Neighborhood Watch, it's successful. And I will say that District 3 Police Commander, sorry, my kids are coming in behind me. You probably can't see them with my screen. Our District 3 Police Commander and his team are fantastic. Nobody does it better. They, truly are the most successful when it comes to training communities for Neighborhood Watch, being very focused on, ensuring that people are looking at suspicious behavior and not profiling people for any particular reason, those kinds of things. I will just say to the community out there, if you have not taken a Neighborhood Watch training with District 3, I strongly urge you to do it. They are fantastic. It's a really good training. And I think that it is very, very important because it allows for the community members to participate in the process of safety. And that's really important. So I will leave it there, although I'll be interested to hear if the District 3 officers have anything else to add. They're the experts.
Yeah. We're back to you, Lieutenant Ergon.
Thank you. So thank you, Councilwoman Sawyer. I will actually echo what she was saying. So, specifically with porch pirates, police officers can't be in all areas at one time, right? At the same time, especially when things are happening, because we have no idea when people are going to commit crimes like this. So we rely on programs like Neighborhood Watch and getting communities involved with each other, right, to help each other out. So one of the best ways for us to combat porch pirates and thefts and things like this and things that are happening within neighborhoods like this is prevention, right, and education. So we want to make sure that it doesn't even happen in the first place. And one of those ways that we can do that is through Neighborhood Watch, right? The other thing that we like to do, we like to, tell our neighborhoods, and not just Lowry, but every neighborhood within District 3 is, help your neighbors, like know your neighbor, right? Know your neighbor in the first place and help your neighbor. So if you have a package being delivered, just contact one of your neighbors. You don't have to be best friends with them, and you don't have to, have cocktails with them and do, everyday activities with them, but they can help you out if you're on vacation or if you're going to be late from work, things of that nature. As far as, thing with specifically with packages as well is if you know that you're going to have a package, a lot of these major delivery companies like Amazon, they have secure drop-off locations that you can have your package, delivered to. So we want to make sure that we're doing things like that so we don't become a victim of a porch pirate crime or a theft that's coming off your porch in the first place. So we want to make sure that we push things like that. We want to push community engagement. We want to push neighborhood engagement. As the Councilwoman said, I will say that our team at District 3 is one of the best. They actually do these classes not only with Neighborhood Watch, but block communicators. We have a volunteer, you probably heard of her, name's Christy. She does a really good job with Mike and Matt getting these things organized. And so we can educate our communities within District 3 to help reduce some of these crimes so they don't even happen in the first place. So I will stop there, but that's kind of how we combat, specific thefts and porch pirates within District 3.
Thank you very much. And Kathy has our final question for the panelists.
What immediate and long-term steps are being taken to reverse the crime trends, and how effective are these measures?
Okay, and we'll start with our DA again.
sorry, as I mentioned, we are in court every day prosecuting criminal behavior, and we will continue to do that. We are looking forward to the start of jury trials again mid-February. We are holding offenders accountable, and we also partner with our local police, also our federal agents and state agents as well to prosecute crime. We also believe that part of our mission is to help prevent crime. And so that is why we have started some of the programs that I mentioned. We also recently started a handgun intervention program, which is directed toward juveniles. And we are identifying kids that are being picked up who have guns but haven't used them yet, or at least we aren't aware of them using them. But it is a crime for a juvenile to have a gun. So they get into our system, we are identifying them and putting them into this specialized program where they have mentors, and we partner with the community to really help those kids learn better ways of making choices in their lives so they don't feel that they need to carry guns. And then we have our a new competency court, which Marley's office is involved in, for people who have mental health issues, who are picked up, who are claiming that they have such a mental health issue that they're not competent to handle their case. And so we are identifying people early on through that kind of program to divert them out of the criminal justice system and into a public health approach to really address some of those underlying mental health and substance abuse issues. We have been working on our diversion program to partner with community-based organizations that provide treatment for substance abuse and mental health. And so we are able to actually get individual treatment for people through our diversion program. And then our restorative justice program provides victims and defendants an opportunity to agree on a resolution of a case together. And that has proved to be quite successful. We only have 1% recidivism rate in that program, which has been going on for a couple of years, which is way lower than the average recidivism rate. And we're also one of the only DA's offices in the country that has a dedicated investigator who works to have domestic violence offenders relinquish their guns. And that has been a very successful program. He got 141 guns in 2021 off the street. We believe that the more we can support efforts to get guns out of the hands of people who will use them in a criminal fashion, the better. We've supported safe storage of guns, which is now the law, and in Colorado. So I think there are a number of efforts that we are making along with City Council and the Mayor's office to try to come up with creative ways in addition to our prosecution of cases. We have seen, as mentioned, this rise in violent crime, and we are really focused on those cases as our most important cases, the ones that we really have to spend lots of time on, and we are really focused on those now. So I think we're making a lot of great efforts, and hopefully we will see actually violent crime, I believe now is on the decline a bit in Denver. So we're hoping that that will continue.
Thank you. Okay. City Attorney Bordovsky.
One of those names.
Yes.
I would echo everything that DA McCann said. I mean, we have all of the specialty courts that I talked about. We both talked about at the beginning of our presentation. None of this is easy. I think that's probably pretty clear from all of us here. What I want you all to know is we partner across the board with having conversations, not only between our offices with DPD, but also with community members on how we can resolve these things. There are some increases in violence around, for example, the La Alma Rec Center and the school in that area. And we've had probably no less than 5 meetings just in the less than a week with DPS, DPD, the mayor's office, Beth's office, trying to figure out what's a solution for this increase in youth violence. So please know that these conversations are happening behind the scenes. You may not see them, they're not going to hit the news, but they're happening, and we are working on these very complicated issues. So none of this is being ignored, and we're not just kind of throwing out platitudes to all of you. We don't want to do that. We want to solve these things just as much as you do. So with that aside for a second, I want to also, building on what DA McCann was saying, my office has sponsored and passed actually with City Council. Amanda, thank you, City Councilwoman Sandoval, or Sawyer, sorry. So some gun legislation recently. We passed a ghost gun ordinance just a couple weeks ago with I think unanimous vote, close to unanimous vote in City Council to address that. We are now sponsoring a bill to deal with weapons being brought into city-owned and city-leased buildings. And so we're trying to take some steps to address these things where we can, right? All of this stuff isn't going to be the silver bullet, but we all on this call, bar none, have your best interests in mind, and we're doing as much as we can legislatively and creatively to find solutions to the problem.
Thank you. Councilwoman.
Thanks. And, I think I couldn't have said it better than Marley just did, right? And we truly are all working together to ensure, that crime is going down, that we are addressing the things that we need to address. I could probably talk about this for an hour myself, just because there are so many different moving parts, particularly budget related, that have to do with this. So things like expanding our STAR program. STAR stands for Support Team Assisted Response. It is a group of mental health professionals who respond to 911 calls instead of the police officers or first responders, so that it reduces the amount of interaction with the police for someone who might be, instead of doing something illegal, is just in crisis, and that frees our police officers up to then respond to the calls that come in when someone is doing something illegal, or there is something happening that is emergent that they need to respond to. We are looking, we have funded a number of mental health support programs and are looking at even expanding that further. We are looking at there's a program within the police department called we call it the Hotspot program, but it is based on a program in Cincinnati called the Police Network Investigations Program. And what it is kind of all of the different city agencies coming together to focus on certain highest crime areas. Change the conversation there. So not only, street design, parks, the police department, our mental health providers and partnerships, City Council, the city attorney's office, all of, so many different agencies coming together to really put their expertise into kind of the pot, so to speak, to address the 5 particular hotspots that we find in our city. I'm trying to remember the percentage right now, but I want to say it's like 56% of all crime in our city occurs in these 5 spots. So, those kinds of things. I saw a number of questions and comments in the questions about Lowry East Park. My office hosts a meeting every 6 months with the neighbors in East Park, DPD, the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless, our Department of Housing Stability, Department of Transportation and Infrastructure, to really ensure that everyone's got eyes on the conversation there. And for those of you who are out there who are asking about that, please feel free to email my office, denvercouncil5@denvergov.org. I will send you the minutes for the last 5 meetings that we have held, like I said, every 6 months since I came into office. And the next one is scheduled for April. So please join us for that as well. So, there are so many things that we are doing as a council. And I think probably the single most important one I haven't addressed yet, and that is this kind of national conversation around defunding the police. It's something that City Council has not chosen to do in Denver. And I think that, we've made some choices to move programs around, like the STAR program, for example, into our Department of Public Health, where it's more appropriate to be an out from underneath our Department of Public Safety. But in general, we support our police departments, we support our officers, we hear from residents, we want more police presence. And I don't know, for those of you who are nerds like me and you like reading books, there's a very interesting book that was just released, written by a progressive gentleman in San Francisco. It's called San Francisco. And it talks about sort of the progressive movement and some of the political decisions that have been made in the city of San Francisco. It also looks at Portland and Seattle, and kind of talks through some of those decisions and the consequences of those decisions. And, we try very hard as a city council to ensure that those kinds of things don't happen here. There's an extraordinary need, yes, but I do think, that we are doing so much. Like I said, I could talk for an hour myself about this, so I will stop. But, know that your government has your back, and we are thinking of lots of different and funding lots of different creative ways to address this problem, because we know that it's extraordinary. We live here too.
Thank you. And now we'll wrap that question up with Lieutenant Aragon.
Thank you. And I do want to say just one thing before I actually answer this question. So, and we at the police department actually really appreciate everyone on the panel, and we do feel supported by you, and we really appreciate it, especially with our community as well. So, getting on to specific crime trends, I'll just speak specifically to District 3 and kind of how we do things here in District 3. So, what we try to focus on is education and prevention. When I say that, what I mean by that is we want to try to reduce crimes of opportunity. So, if you leave things in your front seat, or you leave your laptop in your, in your car, or, you leave your keys in your car, or your door's unlocked to your house when you go for a walk, when you go to walk the dog, things like that, we consider crimes of opportunity. So we want to, reduce those crimes, and we want to make sure that, you lock up things, you take them inside, don't leave your car running. Like one of the crimes that we've had a seasonal spike on recently is puffers, right? People, it's cold outside and people want to warm up the car. They don't want to get in a cold car and drive to work cold. And I totally get that, but it only takes a few seconds for someone to jump in your car and take it. And so instead of being a victim, just, I get it. I understand. I know I park outside myself, and I know sometimes it's cold, and we want to warm up our cars so we can, get off to work and have a good start to our day. But if we want to still have a car, we want to make sure that we educate people and prevent those things from happening in the first place. So that's one of the things that we try to teach and try to educate within our communities in District 3 is just, let's reduce the easy things and the low hanging fruit. Let's take care of those things so we don't have these crimes in the first place. And then it does free up the officers, as the councilwoman said, to handle more, high priority calls. We consider, and we know that every issue, and when someone's calling us, it's important to them, right? We want to make sure we understand that and we recognize that, but we also do have to prioritize the calls because we do have a specific amount of officers that respond to those calls, and we will eventually get to it. I know, again, I've talked about this before a little bit as far as call times and things like that, but we will do our best to get there and be there with a smile on our face once we get there and handle that appropriately. So with that, I'll stop with that there, but I appreciate again, the panel, all the panel members and all your support. We really appreciate it. And we really appreciate our partnerships with you guys.
Thank you. We have quite a few questions now that have been put into the chat. And I think rather than try and have all panelists answer every question, maybe each of you could select one or two to address. I would like to ask Lieutenant Aragon, though, there's a question embedded in one of the chat about private security. And this comes up every once in a while at meetings in Lowry. It's people ask, well, should we have a private security service? And I would be very curious to hear what the police perspective is on that issue.
Sure. So actually within District 3, there are already some neighborhoods that actually do employ and have private security. Now, as far as the private security company that you choose, I would obviously, do my homework and, pick one that's obviously that was, within the community's budget. Obviously, that would be something that the community would, within Lowry would have to obviously fund. But I don't think it's necessarily a bad, something bad, because it also gives us a partner, and they become our eyes and ears when we need to respond to different crimes. They're a really good witness for us as far as being in the community. You have someone actively there, they can give us, active, and very good descriptions on different things that are happening within the specific neighborhood or specific crime that took place. So I wouldn't say that the private security company is a bad idea. Like I said, there's already communities and already neighborhoods that specifically that I know of within District 3 that already employ private security companies to patrol some of their neighborhoods, at night or when no one's around. And some of these crimes are taking place, when there's not a lot of people visible.
Okay, thank you. DA McCann, do you have a question on the list that you'd like to address?
Well, there is a question about the retirement of the presiding judge in Denver County Court, Teresa Spahn. She hasn't actually retired. She's still a judge, but she's no longer presiding judge. And we did schedule a meeting with the current presiding judge to talk about PR bonds, and the judge declined to discuss them with us. So we were unable to present her with some specific cases where we felt PR bonds should not have been granted. So we have made the effort, but she felt it would be a violation of her judicial canon. So we were unsuccessful at meeting with her. And then there's also a question about law enforcement arresting criminals, but they're back on the street the same day and often not prosecuted. Why can't we change this policy? So the procedure is when the police arrest someone, they go to the Denver County City Jail, and then the case is heard the next day or the day after in front of a judge, where my attorneys or the city attorneys make argument about bond, and then the judge makes a decision about setting bond or not setting bond. Even if there's a monetary bond set, say $500 or $5,000, a person can still make that bond and get out of jail. So people are presumed innocent until they're proven guilty. And so under our system, people can't just be held because we think they're guilty. They can only be held if they are proved to be guilty, or if the judge concludes that they are likely to reoffend or they're likely not to appear in court. And so we make those arguments, and then some of them do get released, some of them make their bond, some of them don't make their bond and stay in jail. So it just depends on the individual circumstances.
Thank you. City Attorney, or is there a question that you'd like to address?
There are a lot of questions in there and comments. I guess I'd like to address the couple of things. The fact of the presiding judge changing really doesn't change anything. At the end of the day, each judge in the county court is an individual judge. They don't report. For example, we all have a boss, but the individual county court judge stands alone. Whoever the presiding judge is does not order them to do anything. They get to decide what they're going to do. And so whoever the presiding judge is can't tell them you're not going to grant these kinds of bonds. That's just not how it works in the judicial system. So just wanted to clarify that for everybody. At the end of the day, they stand for election every, Beth, I'm not sure how often that is, 4 years?
6 years, I think.
6. And so if a judge is doing things that the community disapproves of, it's up to the voters to decide to tell the judge that with their vote. So it's not up to the presiding judge in this system. The other thing I'd like to say is, there's a lot that's been made across the board in the media and in these conversations here about PR bonds. Beth's office, my office, we will stand up all day long and make our arguments about why a person should or should not get a particular kind of bond. At the end of the day, it's the judge's decision. And it's based on a lot of factors. It's not just something that's made off the cuff by my office, by Beth's office, or by the judge. It's based upon criminal history. It's based on community ties. It's based upon the risk assessment that Beth mentioned earlier. It's based upon a lot of tools that our pretrial services brings to the table to educate the decisions that are being made about people's lives in these circumstances. So I just really want to emphasize the fact that these things and these decisions that are happening in our courtrooms are not made lightly. And so I'm not sure it's coming across, and I don't expect everyone here, because Beth and I live this is our life, and I understand that, and it's not necessarily something that you guys live every single day, but please know that decisions in those courtrooms are not made lightly by any party in the room. I'm not sure that answered any question, but I just wanted to kind of get that point across.
Yeah, Councilwoman Sawyer.
I have like 10 questions I want to answer on here. So I will go quickly. And I think, the first thing I want to acknowledge, there's a question about street racing, right? And I've got to tell you guys, the District 3 Police Department, again, did a fantastic job. So there was you all heard it, a street racing event in Lowry earlier in the early summer, late spring. And there was a halo camera that was in the area that caught the activity. The police officers were able to actually gather enough information that the city attorney's office was able to confiscate some of 12, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was 12 of those cars. So that is, I think, a great example of how all of our kind of separate agencies work together, because we have been advocating for that halo camera out there in Lowry. The police officers have been working extraordinarily hard. There's a statewide task force called, and actually, if you hear or see any street racing, please report it to reportstreetracing.com. That is where they're tracking that information. And like I said, the city attorney's office was able to then use the information that the police department had provided and some of the tape that came from that halo camera and confiscate 12 vehicles. So, sometimes it might not feel like it's working, but it is. Marley, I see that you just came off mute. Do you want to?
I did. I'd love that, if you guys don't mind. I know I'm probably over my time, but Councilwoman Sawyer, that's a great point. I saw that question in the chat. We have the ability in the city attorney's office to file nuisance cases against vehicles. It's not a forfeiture. That's handled by DA McCann's office. It's an ability to close somebody's car or somebody's personal or real property if it's being used to commit crimes. And we don't even need to be able to identify who's driving that car. If we can get a license plate and a description of the vehicle on Halo, as Councilwoman Sawyer is describing, we can file a civil case against that vehicle and take it. And a lot of times people just walk away from it. And that's how we are able to go ahead and destroy. If you guys remember, a few years ago, there was a Kill the Streets rally where a bunch of motorcycles were on I-25 shutting down the highway and nobody could get past. We seized 3 of those and crushed them. So there are efforts on street racing. Councilwoman Sawyer talked about the task force. I get reports every single Sunday night about efforts that DPD is making on street racing. It's not lost on us. It's a huge problem, and there are efforts behind the scenes going on. So thank you for addressing that, Councilwoman.
Yeah, absolutely, Marley, and thanks for for being so successful and at prosecuting and getting those cars off the streets. I believe that, and District 3 will have to confirm this for me, but I believe that actually the instances of street racing have dropped significantly in East Denver in the last 2 months or so. So that's really exciting. Also saw some questions here about our gun buyback program and what that looks like. So if you read the Lowry Aviator, I wrote an article that will come in the, let's see, we're in January, so it will come in the March issue to learn a little bit more about that. Obviously, we know that criminals are not going to turn in their guns, right? But what we are seeing, and the data supports that people who, when everyone went to COVID shutdown and everyone ran to buy toilet paper, they also bought a gun. And I do not say that lightly. That is true. The data supports it. And what we're finding is that many of those people don't know how to store the gun properly. They don't know how to use the gun properly, and they don't know how to get rid of it. So what this is doing is providing an opportunity for people who fall into that category to be able to have a safe space to turn in their guns anonymously, no questions asked. And what that does is it then means that, so again, what we're seeing is sort of an uptick in property crime, including people smashing into cars, stealing those guns that are sitting in the glove compartment or underneath the driver's seat, and then using those in other crimes. So if we can get those guns off the street, that is an important opportunity for us. So wanted to address that question. There are like 10 more that I want to address on here, but I'll go ahead and stop and let DPD jump in.
Hey, Lieutenant Aragon, just generally, are there any you'd like to address? And then there's one specific one about the types of reports that are coming out for neighborhood watch leaders. Have you noticed that one?
I did not see that one.
I could read it to you.
Okay.
This person has been a neighborhood watch leader. He used to get a NIBRS report with 47 different types of crime. Now we only get the overall crime statistics. It is harder to see what is comprised of the increase in crime. For example, what is increasing? Auto theft, burglary, assault. Is there any plan to get back this kind of very helpful breakdown of crime types?
I help with that one. That was changed downtown. That was something that I would have to do some research to see where that change came, because it affects us too, because we take those stats to our neighborhood watch and neighborhood meetings, but they changed that about a year ago. I think it's how they report the crimes to the feds. NIBRS is just the way that calls are categorized, and I think that's how the feds and state government get their stats. But I will look into that and I will let the Lund know about it. I don't know if we'll actually get a real answer, but I'll see if we can get something for that.
Thank you. Any other questions on the list that you'd like to address?
Sorry, I know there's a couple of them about shots fired over by Alton, Tailwind Park. I did look into those calls, and we did receive numerous phone calls on that. It was just a lot of people heard it, no one saw it. Officers were dispatched pretty quickly. It's a good thing we didn't have any victims, but we also didn't know where to look. So we checked the area, and we don't know if the shots were in Tailwind Park on Alton or if it was across Dayton into Aurora. So those ones, it's a good thing we didn't have any victims, but on the end result of it is we weren't able to really track down to where it happened. Again, just don't be frustrated with that. Please call it in and let us know. And it's the kind of the same philosophy. If a lot of people always assume neighbors are going to call, but when it really comes down to it, the more phone calls on it, the more information we get, the more information gets to the officers. And there's that chance. And that's what's helped us with speed racing is people call it in and we have officers in the area that are able to immediately respond. So yeah, on that shots fired, I did look into that. We did receive numerous phone calls. It was just, unfortunately, everyone heard it and everyone gave a different location of where they heard it from. And so we checked those areas, but we weren't able to find anything. So.
And just real quick to kind of piggyback what Matt was saying. So one of the things that helps us with the police department too is, if you call in a call or call in a crime that's being, committed, and it's something like that where it's shots, and we want to make sure the officers can get in the area quickly, it helps us if, the person that's calling in actually requests contact, right? So a lot of calls come in, nobody wants contact. It's an anonymous caller. Nobody wants to, kind of tell us anything. But if you can, actually to speak to an officer, it actually does help a little bit, and it kind of narrows down the focus a little bit to where the officer is looking and where we're kind of tracking things. So it does help. So, I know sometimes you could be waiting a little bit, but it does help if you can, request contact from the officer. The officer will contact you. At the very minimum, you'll receive a phone call from an officer, and then you can actually relay in real time, where you saw or where you heard the shots, where you saw or heard, possibly a car screeching off, what direction they went, things like that nature. So that definitely helps us in the reporting process. So just keep those in mind, or keep those, that in mind when you're calling in calls of specific in nature, or any type of call. It just helps us if we can get firsthand knowledge and firsthand accounts from actual people who witnessed it or heard it, or to give us more accurate information as to where we can start looking.
Lieutenant Aragon, you have mentioned the issues of recruiting and retention, and there is a question about, is there any plan to increase support within District 3? And then how can we all advocate for additional resources within the district? And then there was also a comment about, should we have more, I can't think of the term of it, but when you have small offices rather than one main office. I'm sorry, that isn't a very coherent question. It's a couple of them.
I saw that question as far as like having, more police stations like we do fire stations, right? So at least I can speak on the police side. For us, it makes sense to house, a lot of officers out of one, police station, one substation, and, strategically place those within the different areas within the city and county of Denver. As I stated before, we have 6 districts. There's several officers within each district, and it just works that way better to have, I think, as far as a cost and budget, I can't really speak to those, but that would be very expensive to house, just a few officers in a building, all throughout the city. So, like I said, I'm not going to get too deep into that, just because that's kind of out of my realm as far as, budget and things like that. But it is just far as just, being an officer for, I'm in my 23rd year. I don't think it would make much sense to do that. But again, that's just my specific opinion. What was the other question, that as far as resources?
What can the community do to help support your need for additional resources? Lobby Councilwoman Sawyer, I guess.
Actually, so our police department, Councilwoman Sawyer stated this, several times. We have a great relationship with her office, and every council man or woman's office that's within District 3. So we actually have a great partnership. We feel very supported by our council people that are within District 3 and within our borders. As far as specific support, I know everyone, it's not just the police department, but every business, restaurant, you name it, is dealing with recruiting issues. I know that our recruiting department is working as hard as they can to recruit, everyone, whether it's, former military people, former waitresses, former bankers, it doesn't really matter. As far if they want to at least try, we will definitely, try. And as long as they qualify as far as, criminal background and things of that nature, we will definitely give them a look. So if you know anybody, definitely get a hold of us, and we will make sure that, and we will point them in the right direction. But I think that, as everyone stated here that's on this panel, everyone's dealing with recruiting issues specifically to their departments, and it's not lost on us. So we definitely love the support and love the community that we serve, and we really do appreciate all the support that you give us, within District 3.
Thank you. We're at 8:30. Kathy, do you think we better wrap it up?
I think so. I think we're right on time. I want to thank you all so much. And it gives me a good feeling knowing that we have such quality people working in our community, and that you're all working together. That just, it's very reassuring. And I really want to thank you and appreciate your time tonight. And Councilwoman Sawyer's office and Logan and Felicia for helping us with our webinar. And anyway, thank you very much for taking the time tonight. Really appreciate it. And look for the next LUN meeting in April 5th.
And this recording will be posted on our website.
Yes.
So, okay, there's a lot
Okay.
more to be said, but thank you so much, everyone. Really appreciate it.
Yes.
Thank you for
Good
having
night.
us.
Thank you.
Good night.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Good night.
Thanks a lot, you guys. Take care.